Good evening and welcome to Real Talk on SABC 3. The stage is yours. So winter is coming, and no, relax. I'm not talking about the winter that's taken 8 seasons to arrive on Game of Thrones. I'm not doing that. I am talking about the South African winter season that already has some of us wrapped up in our scarves and our polo necks, using our trench coats to keep warm. Now later on in the show, we're talking men's fashion for the upcoming winter season. So stick around for that if it's your fancy. But before we do all of that, you have been begging us, but now begging us to have this guy on. And there was a time when I thought you guys thought we don't want him on. We're like, no, we do want him on. My first guest is known for his style and elegance, having been named GQ's best dressed man, as well as having won Cosmo's Sexiest South African Man competition, okay? All he wanted to do as a child was play soccer, just like his father. But I mean, when your father is the legendary Kaizer Chiefs player, Maponyane, you very quickly realize that you will forever be in his shadow when it comes to soccer. That was when he decided to carve out his own career path as a model, television presenter, actor, writer, and businessman. He's also one half of the most talked about celebrity couple alongside leading lady Nomzamo Mbata. Please welcome the man himself, Masigo Maps Maponyane.
Hello. See, that was quite an introduction. And you even slipped that last bit in all sneakily, but we're not going to go there, right? So it's all good.
Which part? The Maps Masigo Maponyane part?
Yeah, that part.
Oh,
that part.
okay,
Yeah.
I figure. So I heard you say that you were caught off guard when you were named Cosmo's Sexiest Man.
Absolutely off guard.
Okay, so you don't have mirrors in your house.
You know what it was? I think then I was still sort of just trying to. I was in the modeling industry, still fairly, low key with a lot of things, and I ended up at this casting for it by mistake.
Okay.
When they were trying to pick.
You were going with a friend, and then
I was in Cape Town doing another shoot, and then a friend, the driver from the shoot, had to take this guy who I was shooting with to this casting, and I was sitting in the car, and he was like, "Just come upstairs." Just come
you're
in.
one of those annoying people who weren't supposed to get the job and they got it. Oh.
No, but I mean, it was also just very awkward because every other guy was like this gym bunny who was in great shape, and I was just a kind of an awkward kid with glasses.
But when I heard that you were caught off guard, in a way, I was like, oh, I cannot believe it, because let me tell you who I think Maps was as a child. I'm talking 8 years old, 10 years old. Then you'll tell me who Maps was as a child. So Maps, a little bit nerdy, likes soccer because obviously his dad likes it, plays it in the street in Soweto because everyone's there, but everyone keeps on calling him Max Maponyane when they cheer him on playing soccer. But actually, he's a bit reserved, he's not into this whole big limelight thing.
I think as a very young child, complete opposite.
Really? I'm upset with myself.
I was a terrible, terrible child to try and raise. I was an absolute mess in terms of how I behaved. I was always in trouble. I think I got suspended 2 or 3 times before I got to grade 3.
Wait, grade 3 is standard 1, Maps?
No, Nikile, I was the worst.
What are you getting suspended for when you're 7 years old?
Where do I even start? I had this really, really bad stutter, and I struggled to fit in. And as a result, all the other kids were always making fun of me non-stop. It was always just this frustrating thing where they would always point it out, and it would be difficult for me to be able to fit in because they would always try and finish my sentences, or would just the whole time just repeat what I'm saying and just stick on that same word that I'm saying to exasperate it even more. And then I think I just started acting out. You try to overcompensate, and then I just started, it made me a little bit of a bully, to be honest, because you try compensate and show that you can be strong, and started, bullying around the other kids.
Were you getting teased for your dad being Max Maponyane as well?
No, never that.
Never that. Okay.
No.
Because I know Dineo Mukete was here, and she said she got bullied because her mom is KG Mukete. And she said, you do not understand the amount of turmoil kids put me through because I had a famous mother.
I got bullied in primary school for it, sort of later primary school. But I think as soon as my attitude changed and I started being more of someone who could behave a whole lot better, then people just got over it. When I saw that it didn't concern me, it didn't matter anymore. But when I was about 8, or I think I was 8 years old, my headmistress had told my mom that I'll probably be a convict by the age of 12.
Oh, please, at 8 years old, your headmistress is dramatic.
I know.
She's so dramatic.
If you ask my mom, it's always like the saddest story for her to tell, because I remember the emotion on her face. She was like, Why not? No, but yeah, it was always interesting just sort of seeing how my parents would deal with me, and I had no idea what kind of a child I was like until things just sort of started falling into place and I overcame my stutter, and yeah.
Okay, so you don't need to know who you are at 8 years old, so I don't think that I don't think that was an issue. How do you overcome the stutter? Do you go for therapy? Do you, I don't know, speak slower?
So actually a little bit of both. So I started going to speech therapy for quite a while.
Is that something you asked for, or is it something your mom just put you into?
My mom really wanted me to go to. My mom is through and through academic, incredible woman, but you know, I think for her it was frustrating that her child, who coming from where she was, being this, you know, consistent academic and perpetual academic, her child also needed to be, you know, quite smart and learned and being able to speak and stand up for himself and everything. And I think it frustrated her that that wasn't happening. It frustrated her that I was getting bullied and as a result would bully other kids, and that I struggled with learning because teachers weren't patient as well with that. And it starts affecting a whole list of things. Then you've got doctors putting you on Ritalin because you're hyperactive, and that's making more of a problem. And you ADHD already at 8 or 7 years old, and all these sorts of things. And I remember having to go to speech therapy quite often, and that just wasn't working. And then eventually things started falling into place when my speech therapist had said to me that I should actually try and read more often to myself.
Speak out loud.
Speak out loud.
Yeah, speak out loud.
And I would read almost every night a new type of book and try read line by line out loud, trying to think of some sort of a rhythm. I'm not sure if you've ever seen when people who have bad stutters sing. They can sing without stutters, sing perfectly fine. So I had to try and figure out some sort of a rhythm to change that speed bump that I kept hitting between my mouth and the thinking in my brain, and how when I try to say something there'd be this collision every time. And I think it's only once I started owning it a little bit more and feeling more comfortable with it that it started to flow a little bit better. And you know, I always just sort of say I would always just try and get my words out one by one, like an army walking towards a front line, you know, in a single file. And eventually, once I could get my articulation right and make more sense, and books was just what was helping me the whole time, reading as much as I could.
And I mean, now you're also reading, which is also sharpening your other skill in 100%. Terms of just being worldly and knowing about things.
And you don't even realize it. I think in hindsight, it was probably one of the greatest blessings to have had that. And yeah, then it all just started making sense. And actually, when I was young, I told myself that when I overcome this, I will make sure that whatever I do in the future will involve a lot of speaking. And
but
I'll try and
sneak up on you now, like on stage when you're presenting and then you're
it actually, you know what, it doesn't quite sneak up on me. It's the strangest thing. So because in psychology, this is why psychology was such a fascinating thing. Because I sat down and I read, hey, Wabon, cool.
Your past is catching you by the ankles. Osala.
You're saying you're over this, come back. I would read book after book, but obviously our books at that school were English, right?
Yeah.
So the strangest things, because Tswana was my mother tongue, because I didn't read Tswana books, when I'm speaking Setswana and I'm in depth in the conversation, it catches up on me. Because I'd learned that rhythm, which is different to, all languages have different types of rhythms and words and letters that follow each other. And it's the strangest thing, where only once I start to get comfortable, and if you get a little bit nervous, it sneaks up on you. But I think, I think I've definitely overcome it on other sides. Every language I've learned after that has been perfectly fine.
I had the silliest thought in my mind now, is the day you propose to your girl there, will you marry me?
I mean, if I started that much, it probably would have just like walked away by then. But honestly, the best time I remember for me was, you know, as a kid, trying to own it and trying to figure out how I can get other kids to stop making fun of me. And I was doing this speech, and in the speech, I had to say what my favorite things were. And I said one of the things was sport. And I said that I love. So as everyone starts to join in, I say sport with only one L, or with only one S, ma'am, sorry. And then everyone, of course, was a little bit more. And then I just started owning it a bit more.
Oh man, this is such a journey down memory lane. Maps was just 10 years old when his mother signed him onto an agency that would kickstart his success in the entertainment industry through doing commercials. After the break, we learn more about how this ambitious go-getter kept improving on his craft year after year after year after year. And welcome back. You with Real Talk with me, Anele Mdoda. So today we're in the company of media personality Maponyane. He brought his leading role of Nat to life alongside Nomzamo Mbatha in 2015's rom-com Tell Me Sweet Something. He was also part of the ensemble cast of the telenovela Rockville, which starred Selo Makakangube as well as Charlene Surti Richards. Then there was the time he tried his hand at a mockumentary local version of The Real Husbands of Hollywood. It was titled Real Josie A-Listers, which also featured Tall Ass Mo and Trevor Gumbi.
Introducing the King of the North, Dalles. The comedian who never jokes about his own style, Tall Ass Mo. Model / pretty boy / no one knows what he really does, Maps Maponyane. And Trevor Gumbi. Catch some of Josie's most famous and infamous celebrities as they spoof what it's like to be the real Josie A-listers.
So that whole notion of, you know, model / TV personality / no one really knows what he does. I think initially, you know, it can be an insult, but then that's kind of your power, isn't it? The fact that you can slip into anything, and we're not quite sure if we've ever seen you do that, but we're not also offended by the fact that you are in that space.
100%. I think I've tried to use it to my advantage as a result, and I've always tried to stay quite low-key about things. You know, since that time of when I was as a kid, you know, quite, as I say, mischievous and everything.
Abrasive.
I grew up, quite abrasive. I grew up into being this person who was quite introverted.
Yeah.
And now when you step out into the light, it was a weird thing of trying to balance the two and I guess becoming an ambivert, because you have to be a little bit more extroverted and being able to be both.
Yes.
When the lights come on, you need to be able to have that personality and do whatever you need to do that, right? But I think it's a nice way of being able to separate the things, focus on what it is that you love, and you know, separate how much you share, and being able to hold back and doing things that matter without the influence and people thinking that they have every single, you know, say in what you do, when you can just focus and actually get it done.
So when we say we're honing your craft, what do you do on purpose to make sure that you stay on that good at what it is that you do? What craft are you honing?
I think with anything I sort of get involved in, whether it's the business side, whether it's the NGO side, the diplomacy side, entrepreneurship side, or the entertainment side, I think it's always important to learn from others as much as possible. Research. And I think for me, the best thing is always just to be sticking to my own lane and not actually get involved with what else is happening around me. You know, it's good to know what people are up to, but it's even better to know how far you can push yourself in terms of your potential and capabilities. You know, I'll always say it's something that I pride myself on, where I'll always admittedly say that I'm not the biggest, strongest, fastest, most talented in anything. But no one will outwork me. And you know, I think I work my ass off in anything I do. And I just always try and be the best that I possibly can. And I'm always, you know, it's one of those things where you have that complex where it's just never good enough. And you can admit that to yourself. And if something didn't go as I wanted, I'll go back to the drawing board and rather hold back anything else in that department until I get to that point. And I think it's important to constantly be working on yourself and be able to grow in that space and create a positive space for yourself.
Do you know what I know about this industry is that, and you touched on it earlier, is that you'll find yourself doing a lot of things, right? Purely because you're known. So it's, oh my word, we need somebody to, you know, bungee jump out of a plane whilst making a call off this phone. Let's get Maps. He's sporty, he's gym. You know what I'm saying? So people want to put you in a lot of things, and you'll do it because also we need to survive, right? I don't know anyone who can be in the space that we do and only do one thing and survive on it. If they do that, well done to them. What do you like doing the most? Is it the MC jobs? Is it the modeling? You know, is it the shooting TV adverts? Is it the, you know, the occasional acting that you do every now and then?
It's a good question. You know, one of the things I've always sort of tried to promise myself is not to do things unless they bring actual purposeful joy out of me and are quite fulfilling. I love people. I love getting to interact with people. I love the challenge of being on stage, when we're emceeing or hosting something, and all sorts of things are thrown at you, and you have to be sharp or witty enough to be able to throw it back and use that, and constantly honing on that skill. I think whatever I've done in, whether it's the TV presenting or the acting or the modeling or the business side of things, you create an ecosystem where they all help each other. So while we're having this conversation, I know that's improving your skill when you're on radio. Where with the radio, whatever it is, and your conversational skills could help your emceeing. And with my side of things as well, if I'm in front of the camera doing something for modeling, it would fit into the exposure you kind of get with fashion and all of that. And you can maybe have a little bit more of an opinion or hand in fashion. And I think I've tried to link everything together where it makes sense.
But there's one you like most. You're not going to offend anyone.
No.
Do you know, because
out of those things or in general?
Out of all of, for me, it changes. Sometimes I love radio the most. With all my heart. And then I'll have an amazing, 2-week run on TV. And then I'm just like, ooh, TV is my thing. I'm doing this thing forever. So it changes. And then sometimes you'll have an amazing MC gig and just like, this is what I was born to do, to be on stage with a microphone. It's
such a strange thing. Why? The only reason why I think I'm struggling to pick just one is because what I love is making people feel really good. And especially feel good about themselves. So I think when you create something, whatever it is you're creating, if you're creating art or whatever it is, and you manage to create an impact through that, then you have significance in what you do.
Do you want to say modeling, but you're scared people are going to think you're shallow because you like modeling?
I can actually probably say that's the last thing.
Really?
Yeah, that's right at the bottom of the list. I do as least as possible of that now. I love the business side of a lot of things I do, the entrepreneurial side. I'm in the tech entrepreneurship and VC space as well. I love the NGO space, involved in, I started something with 2 other guys where we all share a vision of improving the access to education, higher education, and that's been something that's been really successful. It's called bursarynetwork.com, and we started about 1.5 years ago after Fees Must Fall, trying to figure out how we can still contribute without just being behind our screens
owning it and making it your thing.
And actually
giving enough space, but support.
But also there's only so much you can say with words, like, I condemn this, I condemn this. But that's not going to change anything. So how do you actually make some sort of contribution? So we've been around for like 1.5 years. We've raised just over 850,000 Rand, and we fully funded 20 students through varsity as a result. And it's a crowdfunding website, and it's just about getting the public, people, to believe in young students who need that kind of support. And I've been lucky to, as a result, join with another institution now, because I'm passionate about youth, education, and a whole list of other things, but I'd say those are 2 of my main things. And even with the Pearson Institute now,
What's Pearson Institute?
Pearson Institute is a private higher education institute. And
so it's like Bond or Monash.
In the same sort of field. You qualify them in the same field. And I think actually tomorrow or today we've set something up, and I have a bursary now where I'll be I'll say on my social media, I'll announce it quite soon, where we'll be offering a bursary to someone to go and study, whatever they'd like to at the university, and then they can go and actually get a degree.
Where's Pearson based?
Pearson is based all around the country, so all around. There's lots of different campuses. So I love those kind of projects where you can do that, involved in different library projects to improve the level of literacy. South Africa's got one of the lowest levels of literacy, which compacts on every other problem in the country. One of the lowest levels of literacy, one of the highest levels of crime, 25 universities in South Africa versus 263 prisons. That tells you exactly how we deal with our problems. We have a horrible Gini coefficient. You saw World Bank just named us one of the most unequal country in the world, and it's all as a result of that. And it all links up at one point. And I think if you start to sort out the foundation, everything else will start to sort itself out. And I think, not to obviously get political about things, that's why I always just sort of worry about taking from basic education and helping fund the higher education when you're essentially putting now a roof.
Foundation phase
Exactly.
is totally disregarded.
And you're trying to put a roof when you don't have the rest of the structure, and that's not going to actually help the problem. So I'd say I love that side of things, and I get to get quite involved in that. Yeah.
He likes a lot of things. Listen, coming up after the break, we find out how Maps went from modeling and acting to serving as an executive for tech companies. We'll be right back. For niche. Wow, you know, Maps likes to shock me just as the cameras are about to start rolling. He says some other things to me. Welcome back to Real Talk on SABC 3. The stage is yours. So some people probably thought Maps was just another pretty boy getting by on his looks, but he has proven time and time again that he has got a lot to offer. It's been almost 10 years since his first modeling campaign, and a lot has happened since. Amongst many things, he became part of a tech company called Niche Stream. Plus, he is the director of Silicon Maponyane, a tech company that creates tech solutions with a focus on development. This whole hustler entrepreneurial side of you, can we date it back to you hustling your parents for money?
Yeah.
They'd be like, bring us water. You're like, it's gonna cost you. It's gonna cost you.
So when I was around 7 o'clock, wow, when I was about, English is attacking me today. When I was around 7 years old, I drew up my first contract. It was literally 2 lines. And I had written on this piece of paper, and I got my mom and dad to sign saying that when mom is cooking, when I have to help her, sure. But when she's done, I need to bring the food, in order to bring the food and coffee or a drink that you'd like, a beverage that you choose, to the room, as well as bring you dessert, as well as make sure my room is clean. You have to pay me R1 a week. And that was the agreement, and they signed that agreement. And you know, my mom always said, "What I tell it, like you always are trying to somehow hustle us."
Yeah.
You know, when you wash the car, I mean, you know all about. You wash the car, you have to, you know, just.
Somebody must pay up.
It has to, you know, 50 cents, R1.
These cars don't wash themselves. Come on.
And I just used to build up this piggy bank. I think the best thing my mom ever did was get me to really get into that culture of saving and then being able to buy bigger things or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I would just always save. And I think they allowed it to happen because they liked the fact that I wasn't using it immediately.
Okay.
And I think when I went into varsity, because I studied at Wits, while I was working and everything, studying at Wits, I was working at Akajo. I just started presenting.
You worked at Akajo?
I worked at Akajo, yeah.
You, Mara, you guys used to dance, eh? People work at Akajo full time, better so, eh? Yeah?
And, you know, from that point, I was also doing another, I just started a schoolboy rugby show that I was presenting.
Yes.
It was my first presenting job.
Yeah.
And then I was selling paper wallets at school as well, at varsity, these paper wallets that you can't tear.
Yeah.
And the whole time I was just hustling to try and save to start up a new company or business idea or something. And that's sort of where the whole journey has started. And I'd start different things.
What stops you on relying on the fact that your dad is Max Maponyane? Because you sound like you always worked. You were always looking for, you know, some gap where you're like, okay, there's a need here, I'm going to fill it and I'm going to get paid for it.
Yeah.
But, you know, not everyone is like that. You know, if you see your dad on TV all the time, we see your dad with Lucas Radebe, you know what I'm saying? We see your dad with Dr. Kumalo. It's like, you made, you know.
Firstly, I think the first thing would probably be the misconception of the fact that we would have been really wealthy because of him playing soccer.
Yeah.
He played soccer during a time when there was very little money in football. He was playing soccer professionally and still working 2 other jobs while he was a professional footballer. I remember when he'd tell me that, I'm not sure which team it was, but when he was sort of at the height at some point, his salary was 600 Rand a month. And although you'll say in those days, 600 Rand was a lot of money, it's still not a lot of money relative to how much people are earning now.
Yeah. And relative to the amount of pressure they were under and the amount of work they had to put in to be that fit and deliver that much on a weekly basis.
Yeah, and also the pressure that comes with keeping up with one another.
Yeah.
You know, that whole keeping up with the Joneses is a real thing.
Yeah.
When you also need to make sure that you look the part. And I think I was just always taught by my mom and my dad to make sure that I earn every single thing that I aspire to have, and that I value every single thing. They, you know, when I was at school, they always made sure I wasn't under any pretense whatsoever that I'd be able to get what the other kids had. And as a result, I ended up becoming this kid who always made sure that I would ask for things that the other kids didn't have, if that made sense. So if they all had the PlayStation or whatever it is, I've never had a PlayStation or anything.
You'd ask for something totally different.
I'd ask for something a little bit more simple that was reasonable to the fact that that wasn't possible. They did their best to send me to a good school, and that was the toughest part for them. You know, we, just like with many families, would have those issues where you're just waiting for your report because the school fees haven't been paid, and they sacrificed as much as they could. And I think, you know, my dad also put that pressure under himself of being who he was to try and show this life, you know, but he provided it in any way that he could. And for that, you know, I'll always absolutely respect him and my mom.
I'm so glad you're being this honest with us, because to us it's almost like you know, you live this fairy tale life. You know, you've got the superstar dad, you've got this gorgeous mom, and then you come out and you look like this and all of that. But to be fair, all of this is worked for. I appreciate that what you're preaching here is it's all worked for. Nothing comes, you know, in jail. You look like this because you spend hours in the gym. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think with small things that my parents have said and small things that they've done and small circumstances that have all come together and led to whatever this is. You know, I think when I'd listen to my mom or my dad saying, you know, don't worry, if something didn't work out, just focus on being a better person you are when you go to bed than you were when you woke up that morning. Simple as that. My dad would say things like, there's no such thing as impossible, it just takes longer than planned, so just keep working away at whatever it is you're trying to get to, and eventually it will come together. And when I finished high school, things went pear-shaped a little bit at home, you know, financially and stuff, but my parents just kept hustling, but they said, we sent you to a good school, you've worked hard to, you know, have done fairly well, and now it's up to you. We've done our job, we've done what we needed to, now it's up to you. And as a kid, you're kind of resentful at that when they've always sort of looked after you by taking you to school and bringing you back and making sure you're fed and that you have a home and everything. But when they said their job was done, you actually start to realize in hindsight how fortunate you were to have gotten that
far.
Exactly. And them saying, go, make a plan. And I've got this attitude now of there's no plan B. With whatever I think of and whatever I want to do, I'll knock and kick down whatever doors I needed to make sure that I do it. I remember when I started modeling, for example, or even when I got into fashion, I was a PA for the director of SA Fashion Week, Lucilla Boyson.
Oh, yes.
You know, she's one of the people who discovered me, so to speak. And she didn't hire men. She was all about women empowerment, which I completely respected. And all I wanted was just to be a PA. I said, I'll do whatever you need to, just please hire me as your PA. I want to learn more. And I would just constantly ask her, and eventually I was a PA, and we did a couple more seasons together, and then, you know, you just sort of work your way up the ranks on that side. And I'd go to auditions as well when I was doing modeling, and they'd ask for a really dark-skinned male to do this,
and then Maps walks in.
And I'm just like, let me convince you that I'm your guy, you know? Dark-skinned male with big hair or whatever it might be, or I'd always just try and make sure that I'd work hard enough to change the course of how things were supposedly meant to be.
I see a lot of self-improvement in you, which is great, because it just means that you never get bored of yourself. You always want to, you know, improve.
100%, yeah.
Just to wrap up, what do you think you could be better at?
Everything.
Really?
Everything. I think for me, one of the things that I think keeps me motivated is constantly knowing that I haven't arrived. I'm still scratching the surface. I can still be better, and that, you know, I think I just need to make sure that I keep my head down and keep getting better. There's so much out there. There's so much to be achieved, and there's so much that I want of my life and myself that I think I can push myself to that point.
Stay low, keep firing.
One of those, exactly.
Stay low, keep firing.
And I think just never to let anything else get to my head, but make sure that I focus on the things that I love and do them as best as I can.
Okay, and when are you and Nomzamo getting married?
Me and who?
Nomzamo.
Thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Oh, a big thank you to media personality Maponyane. We'll be there. Hey! So from one stylish gent to the people who are responsible for making all of us look good in our garments, winter season is upon us, and we have some of the most renowned fashion designers joining us to help us look our best. We're talking men's fashion after the break. Stay with us. So. Welcome back. This is Real Talk on SABC 3. The stage is yours. Two fashion designers with two very different career journeys, but the same end result with their own fashion labels. The first one graduated with a BA in fashion design at SAFTA in 2014. That same year, he was named AFI Young Designer of the Year 2014 at Mercedes-Benz Fashion Week. The second designer followed an entirely different route into building his label. He first started out as a model, becoming the first African face for Diesel in the 90s. Okay. Thereafter, he became a stylist to the stars before finally launching his label as a fashion designer. Please welcome Rich Mnisi as well as Ephraim Mudingwana. And I'm so glad I asked you how to say your surname.
Thank you,
Because I was going to say Mulingwana. To me, you like Madonna, Beyonce, Aretha, you know. I never knew you had a surname. I thought it was just Ephraim.
That's the way to go.
Right? I just thought that was it. Baby, Ephraim. So listen, I was speaking to and this is to both of you to kick this discussion off. I was speaking to a design student, just finished, his degree also at SAFTA, and I was saying, look, I'm going to have Rich Mnisi as well as Ephraim on the show today. You know, what do you think I should ask them? And he said, how do they find their identity? Right? Because you need to find, as a designer, you need to find your identity within a South African space, and then ultimately within a global space, without copying what's happening globally, but also representing what it is about you that is South African. So I just want to know, how do you find your identity? And I just said, that's like, wow, I never thought of that. That is a great question. And Rich is going to answer it now.
I mean, take it back home. For me, that's the root of all my inspiration. I take it back home. My grandmother, my mother, that's how, I find, that's where I start. That's where all my inspiration starts, because I mean, I need to talk out, my work needs to speak for the things I've been exposed to my whole life. So that's, because actually I started a brand straight after graduation, and that was almost on trend. It was doing what's right.
Yeah.
And then I decided to rebrand to become Rich Mnisi, and then that's when things started looking better for me, because it was honest. It was really just a representation of the things that I'm thinking about. And just that level of honesty, and not necessarily fighting to be right or to be on trend, because you being present in these times, you being current, really, to be honest. Yeah.
Ephraim, you're nodding.
Yep.
How do you find your identity, especially having taken such a different path into owning your own fashion label?
Yes, well, when I started, I really look back to where South African music is. Actually, I was more into the arts, music-wise. I love the arts so much. So I love the likes of Sophia Town, and it sort of intricate so much into my collection, whatever I create all the time. And again, the black people at general, they are the best dressers. I always say we are the best dressers, because we never had much, but we always utilize the best that we've got to the T. So whenever we dress up, we look so great. And then the patchwork was, hence I utilize most of my garments. I always have a lot of cutaways and patchwork, because
that was us, fixing a torn jacket.
Yes.
You can't buy another jacket, but you
have to fix it. But we make it absolutely great. You know what I mean? So for me, that has been my core, and that's how I found my sort of my collection.
Yeah. So ultimately, take what's in front of you. Take up what you grew up with. I look at your clothes when I reach, and they're just so consistent, and I just want everything. You know what I mean? Anything, even if whether it's a guy wearing it, it's a girl wearing it, I'm like, I just want it. Where do you? What's your creation process? Is it a holiday? Must you be stressed? Must you be in love? Must you be hungry? What needs to be happening?
My mother needs to be present. I bounce a lot of ideas off with my mother. And even right now, I'm working on a full project. It's called Ngwamlamula, and it's inspired by my late great-grandmother, who I never got to meet. There's no images of her. We don't know when she was born. We don't know anything. All I know is that she raised my mother and my grandmother, and that they love her.
So they give you stories about her.
So that's how I base all my collection. So it's almost trying to dress this idea behind her while honoring her, and also talking about I'm fascinated about there's a lot of stories, South African stories, that we don't know about, and it's almost solidifying that and making sure that everyone knows that they were here. I have a friend that told me a story about her grandmother who was given ice cream by her employer, and she decided to take it home so that she can give it to her child. And like, that really moved me. I think, yeah, and I think that was so important, like the idea of a mother's love.
Because it melted.
Naturally.
But the fact that as a black woman, all you want to do is for your child to have what's good and not you.
Yep.
Oh. And you, what must happen for Ephraim to create, right? I see the patchwork. I love the fact that you said that, but I mean, here you are. What space must you be in?
Going back to what Rich just said now, we've got such a rich history and such a rich culture in South Africa and Africa at large. Because, you know, when I speak of South Africa and Africa, I always speak of the continent.
Yeah.
And the evolution of dressing of men, especially because I love dressing men a lot, I love tailoring a lot, and I understand the culture of how men should dress. You know, over the years, we have seen how it has evolved.
And men are embracing it more, the tailored look.
I mean, like in the 17th century, the Kim Shweshwe was wearing a top hat and a cape.
Come on.
Hello, you know. So, and you can see over the years how it has sort of translated and changed.
Yeah.
And the men are still embracing it. And the men are coming quite strong now lately. I mean, not only just from dressing, just grooming at large, overall in grooming, you know. So, yeah, really indeed, we have such a narrative, amazing culture, you know, and it's no longer even just about tribal, if you are Zulu, Xhosa, Nguni, or whatever. It's more of culture now. We got Sophia Town as a culture. We've got Mazazanza is a culture. We've got Mapanzula as a culture. We've got Mahipi. So all those cultures, when you put them all together, they create South African harmony of fashion.
I watched the documentary House of Z, and I even forget what his name was. His name is, it's a designer, and he makes dresses for all these red carpets, you know, celebrities around the world. And what I liked the most was the amount of documentation that happened. You know, he's there documenting the smallest room that he first started working in, you know, to the factories that you own around the world. And I asked myself, I was like, I hope South African designers are doing this. Are you documenting yourself, Rich?
I am so shy. And I hate cameras. Literally every single time someone is like telling me to start documenting stuff, I don't know, it feels so weird. But like I have to.
Like little, even GoPros or somebody who's just sneakily following you around.
If I have maybe if I have those mirrors that like have a camera behind you, and then maybe.
So you forget that they're there.
Yes, because like I become so conscious of it. You know, it's a complex I have to work on. So yeah.
Ephraim, are you documenting what you do?
Well, I will say no.
Why not?
You know what? First of all, you know, we are not really in that culture of where we are very conscious about who you are. So it goes back to how you're grown up, you know what I mean? There's all that culture of Ubuntu and all this. You always shy away.
Yeah.
You know, you're not as abrasive. Yeah, you're not as abrasive as like, look at me, I'm here and I'm doing this and that.
Yeah.
Yes, maybe the only now culture, you know, only now generations, they're more prone to that. You know, but fortunately, over the years, some of the TV work I've been doing, it has been documented. So somehow one day somebody will put all that together and yeah, my story of life will be out there.
I'll tell you why I stress the documentation thing is because ultimately you need to put what you guys know in textbooks, right? Because up until now, I suppose what you get taught in school, you did BA at Lysof, is also an international feed, an international school of thought when it comes to fashion. And here you are talking about patchwork, right? And why your inspiration is for that. And it's important that in 100 years' time, a young South African boy knows your inspiration around that. Do you see what I'm saying? And here you are talking about a grandmother you've never met being the inspiration purely because she raised your great grandmother and your grandmother and your mother. Do you know what I'm saying? So I feel like it's so important for it.
It's one of those things where you need to find, I would almost need to find a balance, because for me it was almost like my documentary is in my work. It's all in all the scenes. That's where you see, that's where the storytelling lies, and I don't literally need to be present within that. But I mean, it is always good for people to see the process, you know, because people are very interested, you know. People always ask me that question, like, how did you arrive at this, you know?
You're such a purist. My documentation is in my work. Look, as we get ready to wrap up our conversation with our designers, Ephraim, as well as Rich, we're getting into some insights on which trends to keep an eye out for now this winter. If you're a lady, stay and watch for your guy. If you're a guy, stay and watch for yourself. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Real Talk on SABC3. The stage is yours. Over the years, we've seen men's fashion come a long way to becoming the multi-billion-dollar industry it now is. From the double-breasted suit jackets in the 20s to the use of pinstripe material in the 30s, let's not forget about the emergence of knitted vests in the 40s and the edgy leather biker jackets that had every man feeling cool in the 50s. But what are we looking for this summer? What must we gravitate towards in 2018? Fashion designers Richard Mnisi and Ephraim Moringwana are here to tell us about those staples that should just always be in your closet. Ephraim, what must a man always have in his closet?
Phew, what a
Or
question.
wardrobe. Let me not say closet. Closet is American. Tinaki wardrobe.
Simple to the key.
Yeah.
Denim.
Denim.
It's never out of style, never out of fashion. Black fitted suit.
Yes.
Definitely. You can wear it black and white, you can wear monochrome, you can wear it with any other color. You can wear African print shirt inside it.
That's
and it looks
true.
absolutely amazing. Shoes, beautiful lace-up shoes. It's a must, it's a key. And Richie?
Yeah, you pretty much listed everything. A coat.
Yeah.
It's very necessary. Turtlenecks. I'm
I'm a believer.
I genuinely believe that's the only thing you need. And I mean, right now, like, we're seeing a lot of men play with proportion and color and print.
Yes.
So I think also like having like the staples that you mentioned that can go with all those things, so that, you know, even after the even after this like sudden liberation, you can go back and.
Yeah, and be normal, and be
and be normal.
consistent, and be timeless and classic. So we're teasing a friend of mine, Ukaya Danga, right? Because he has a stylist. So, and the stylist drops off clothes and he wears them, and he looks really great.
Yes.
So we're teasing, we're like, oh, Kaya, what did your bag of stylists bring today? But I love the fact that we're there, that men have stylists and they're taking what they look like seriously, just for job creation as well. Because if you are paying someone else who's trained to make you look good, it means you can concentrate.
Remember, I come there, I
on
was a
doing other
stylist,
things.
and I did a whole lot of styling, from your Brenda Fastis to Level Matosa to, I mean, to the great movies as well. I did the movies, I did this, dramas, you name it, all that. And it was a job for me, and I made a living out of that. So being a stylist is a part of being, you know, a good job as well.
Yeah.
You know.
So do you work with stylists?
No, I also, well, I do, of course.
Yes.
I separate it. So for my brand, I work with stylists, but I do styling on the side as well.
Really? Okay, so you're not only making the clothes, but you can kind of put them together and all of that.
Yeah. So like I just like thinking of myself as a creative and a creative director. As
I like
opposed to-
that. I think it's important, because I always say this about TV, and this is how we're going to wrap up today. You know, when kids are watching TV, it's like, I just want to be Anele. But you forget that you can be the camera guy, you can be, you know, the sound guy, you can be the makeup person, you can be the stylist. There's so many things that go into putting TV together. Then you become despondent that you didn't make it as a presenter, and you leave it, and then, oh, this dream of yours is shattered. And now here you are. Give me the other things that people could be doing in fashion that you won't be told in J in high school.
From fashion production, from can be a layout in a magazine.
Textile.
You can textiling, you can do painting, you can do fabric cutting, you can do so much, Anele. There's so much in this journey of fashion.
Photographer.
Photography.
Lighting guy.
You know what? You said it all. Yeah.
Anything else that we left out, Rich?
No, definitely. I mean, there's a lot of back-end work. People just love fame. But like, I promise, a lot of people don't
behind
even
the scenes
think.
is better than, I always say behind the scenes for me is better than being in front, you know what I mean?
And behind the scenes, that's got a lot more longevity if you think about it.
Being in the industry for more than 25 years. Hello, Anele.
Hello, hey,
An icon.
Hey. Okay, being in the industry for more than 25 years is what I'll remember Ephraim for saying. And then you will remember, people just like to be famous.
I know, it's true. You can work at the back.
Come work at the
And you
back.
can do a lot more.
You can
and make more money.
And make more money. And
I'm going
that
to be a stylist for your show.
is where we'll leave it. Thanks so much to my guests this evening, Maponyane, Richard Mnisi, as well as Ephraim Moringwana. We're not live tomorrow evening because of the Nelson Mandela Centenary Cup, match between Mamelodi Sundowns and FC Barcelona. But we're back on Thursday evening with comedians Kumba. Please remember that the repeat is tomorrow at 9 a.m. For those of you who may have missed parts of the show. From me and the rest of the team, it was fantastic. Good night. Isidingo is up next.